Penn State fans, you know what time it is. It's Monday, March 10th is what time it is, and it's about high noon. Bob Flounders, Johnny McGonigal here on the Blue White Breakdown, PennLive's football podcast about obviously Penn State football, always available on Alexa, Apple, Google, Spotify, and Stitcher. I've never been on Stitcher, Johnny. I don't even know what it is. I almost always just go on Spotify, but hey, whatever floats your boat, Penn State fans, we are getting closer, Johnny, and closer to the start of Penn State spring practices. But we had since the last time we talked, we had a little news involving. Am I allowed to call it Beaver Stadium? Still, I think I still can, but Penn State has secured a naming rights deal. West Shore Home, jump it in. I believe it's $50 million over 15 years. Is that right, Johnny?
Yep.
But
Yep.
that's interesting news. It's certainly going to help. It's certainly going to help Penn State's football program with the cash as they continue to renovate Beaver Stadium, the 3-year renovation. We're going to get to some of your most important players. I believe you did a mock draft, Johnny. We can dig into that, where you have Abdul Carter going, Tyler Warren going, all that good stuff. But just your thoughts on the news. I mean, I think it's not really a surprise that this happened. I think it's a smart move, and they have a big Penn State. They have a Penn State fan who owns West Shore Home, BJ Worsen, I think, and he stepped to the plate. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised, Bob, especially whenever they announced that they're going to do a $700 million renovation to the stadium. You got to have some money coming from somewhere, and 50 million certainly helps them get to that goal. And not having to borrow as much money, and I believe a lot of the 50 million is front loaded as
Yeah.
well. And so, yeah, the stadium itself, it's still Beaver Stadium, right? But it's similar to what Arrowhead Stadium did in Kansas City. I believe that's GEHA Field at Arrowhead. So similar deal, right? So we'll see, I believe, West Shore Home Field like logo like on maybe the 20s or 25. Pretty much right where like the college football playoff logo went for
Yeah.
that SMU game. But it's still Beaver Stadium, and so it's an understandable, and it's one of those deals. I get it. I totally get it. Right. You're basically wasting money by not having something come in for something like that. I understand. Like I was listening to the Board of Trustees meeting in which it was approved 22-8 on Monday morning during that full session. Some absentees in there, and there were some trustees who were lobbying for Paterno Field, and I'm sure a lot of fans and listeners will want that as well, or would have wanted that. But Pat Kraft called this a transformational naming rights agreement between Penn State and West Shore Home, and it's one of those that will bring in $50 million to a really really heavy lift in terms of a renovation project for the 107,000 seat venue. That all that's ongoing right now, Bob. So they're still working on our press box.
I was up there when they blew that sucker up. It was kind of fun. I'm not going to lie. It was very cold, but also very fun watching it. And I think I know where we're going to be sitting in the fall. It's not official yet, but it will not be where we were sitting. I know that. So, Johnny, we're going to move this right along. We're getting so much closer to Penn State's practice sessions. The Blue White game is April 26th, the final Saturday in April. Big weekend. It's also the NFL draft weekend, if I'm not mistaken, simultaneously. So that'll make for a fun Saturday for us, I think, and also Penn State fans in general. Some Penn State players will go before that. We want to get, in the next couple of podcasts, we're going to talk about your most important player list. We've already kind of highlighted the back end of that. I think 25 through 16 or something like that, and who we really intrigues us. Penn State, I think last week had a weightlifting availability. Max Ralph was up there. Chuck Losey talked about some of the younger players and kind of how they're going about their business. Also, I think this Thursday, you and I are scheming at the moment, Johnny, to put together maybe a draft or a list of 10 potential, I guess, breakout players maybe in the spring or something to that effect. We're still bandying it back and forth, but we might be doing that on Thursday for the live podcast. I'm excited about live podcasting. I love it. I know you and Max did one last week, but Johnny, let's get to some things that you want to talk about. I know you did a mock draft. We can always talk about your list of most important players, which is still up on PennLive 25 through 1. Where do you want to head next?
With all the NFL news that's happening, and let's start there. Let's start with the mock draft because free agency, guys getting signed, trades happening in the NFL could affect where Penn State's two biggest stars in the NFL draft, Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren, especially the former in Carter, might end up next month in the first round of the NFL draft. So let's start there.
Yeah. We can do that. You did one. I think. Why don't we just start with the guy that I think, barring a big surprise, he's going to go very early on Thursday night. Abdul Carter. What a career he had at Penn State. Like, just an impact player. Literally, his very first game. Like, he made news kind of for the wrong reason. I think it was your PennLive debut at Purdue. He was playing right away. He didn't even enroll early that year, but I think he got flagged for targeting, and I think his night ended a little abruptly. But he was just, from the very first game at Penn State, he was just a different guy, and I mean that in a good way. He started as a linebacker, dominant there, especially in his second year. Even in that Peach Bowl loss, Lane Kiffin was just raving. I think he just referred to him as number 11, but Lane Kiffin knew who he was, and then he made the switch to defensive end, and he was just terrifying off the edge, even in the bowl game when he only had one good shoulder. But you had a very interesting home for him. We both would be surprised, John, if he doesn't go in the top 5. He thinks he should go number 1. I think there's some respected mock drafters that think he is truly the best player in the draft. So what was your fit for him? And then I know there was some news on top of that, right?
Yeah, so a little inside baseball. So the people who do mock drafts on a regular basis, the people who churn them out once every week or so, God bless them, because it's an undertaking. And I know that once you get one, I'm sure it's easier just to kind of switch things around a little bit to make it different or make it fresh. But so I started writing this thing on Friday, and it was just a process of mapping.
It takes a lot of time, doesn't it, Johnny?
It does, yeah. And so at the time when I started writing on Friday, Myles Garrett's future was still pretty up in the air. And he ends up, re-signing with the Browns with this massive contract. And what I had was, and I'm not a huge fan of the mock draft trades and stuff, because you can get crazy with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I did have one, and it was just the Giants to move up from 3 to 1 with the Titans to take Cam Ward, because the Giants, as an abject disaster, they need a quarterback, as a lot of teams do.
Yeah.
But I had them moving up to take Cam Ward number 1, not because he's the best player in the draft, but he's the best quarterback in the draft. And then the Browns sitting at 2. I'm at the time Friday, I'm like, if Myles Garrett goes, they're going to need a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Abdul Carter, slot him right in. And if Myles Garrett stays, draft Abdul Carter and have the best 1-2 punch off the edge in the NFL. And have 2 guys you can build around on defense. So that's where I went with Abdul Carter going number 2 overall. If the Titans stay at 1, could totally see him going to the Titans. If I'm the Titans and the Giants want to trade up from 3 to 1, I'm doing that, because they're going to take a quarterback, and then I get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter to build around on defense. So that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I had Abdul going number 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 1. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes 3 or 4. I kind of want him to go to the Patriots and work with Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
They also have a better, it seems like they are building something better than what the top 3 teams are doing right now in the NFL draft.
Yeah, and you know what? Garrett and Abdul on the same team, I don't think it's that crazy at all. I know, people would be like, why would, they have so many holes. But I mean, if you have Abdul on one side and Myles Garrett on the other side, life's going to be real tough for the rest of the teams in that division and the rest of the teams in the AFC. And that's a move that, your favorite team, the Eagles, I don't think they would bat an eye about doubling down and making a good position even more dangerous. So I would not. That would not surprise me. I kind of would like it actually because they got the Browns are a mess on offense, and I don't know that they can unmess that. But so why not just load up the wagon on the defensive side and just commit to rebuilding that offense over the next couple of years because it's kind of a disaster. But I do think Abdul's going to go early. I'm more curious though, Johnny. There's a lot of people that are marrying Tyler to a couple of teams as a good fit. He fits on just about any team. But where did you have him going?
Yeah, I had him go into the Colts at 14, and that's one of those where the Colts, they had the fewest receiving yards from tight ends last year.
Yeah.
And then their starter, or at least one of their veterans, Mo Alley Cox, is a free agent. He's moving on. Not that he was a needle mover by any means anyway. Tyler Warren would be a needle mover. And then you look at the situation they're in with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, and they spent first rounder on him. And you want to give your young quarterback a chance to succeed before you move on from him. You saw what the Bears did in bringing in Ben Johnson as head coach, bringing in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, drafting Rome Odunze last year, like just surrounding your young quarterback with and making sure before you label him a failure that he is actually a failure, and bringing in Tyler Warren. And letting Anthony Richardson have a security blanket like him in the passing game, but also improving their blocking instantly. That's one thing that gets overlooked, I think, with Tyler Warren's game. Everyone talks about the versatility, the different positions that he plays, how he's a wrecking ball with the ball in his hand, especially in the second level. Like, good luck to any DB trying to tackle him. We saw it in the college level, even at the NFL level. But his ability to block in line is as good as you're going to get from a tight end in this draft. And will instantly improve a running game wherever he goes. And so that folds into kind of his versatility and his wow factor as a player, his it factor. And I could see the two most mocked teams for Tyler, I think I've seen are the Colts at 14 and then the New Orleans Saints at 9. Yeah. And you talk about like an offense needing a spark and needing some stability. I think the Dolphins would be interesting for him, like Mike McDaniel working with a versatile player like that. Like, that'd be fun. But I've got the Colts, and it's with good reason.
Yeah, maybe if you're the Colts, maybe stop running your quarterback into harm's way. Like, he's just taking too much punishment, and he's absorbing hits that the injuries could linger. Like, it's not he's a big guy, but you can't use him as like a wing T quarterback. You just can't do it. It's not gonna work. When they were the Redskins, they ruined RG3 doing that stuff, and he wasn't. And RG3 was not as big as Richardson, but just maybe don't run him 18 times a game. Don't do that, and give him a security blanket like Tyler. He'll make the running game a lot better. They do have some weapons, but I could see it, Johnny. I could see it. I could see Indianapolis being Tyler's home. So we'll see how that goes. Why don't we curious the defensive end market real quick. Another Penn State player is going to get paid sooner rather than later, Micah Parsons. I think he's in the final year of his contract with Jerry Jones. The Jones family is known for waiting to the last possible second to pay their best players, thereby guaranteeing that their best players will get as much money as possible from the Joneses. They're ruining their salary cap. So as a Cowboys fan, sadly, I'm expecting them to wait until the very last second to pay Micah. And he'll probably be richer for it, but it's just that they don't do anything smartly.
No, they don't. They, like you said, they wait to the very last minute to get things done. And it's really like the players benefit from it because they're going to get more money. And especially in Micah's case, right? You just saw what Myles Garrett got. Now I want more. I want $1 more. I want $1 million more. I want $10 million. And Myles Garrett just got, I think it's the most guaranteed money by a non-quarterback in NFL history. And we've seen that, like, Max Crosby got that title with the Raiders, like, not even a week ago, like 3 days ago, whatever it was. And then Garrett tops it. And you're going to probably see Micah top it, in the coming days or weeks or months, like however long Dallas decides to draw this thing out. But Micah's going to get paid. he is going to get paid by the Cowboys, assuming they don't let him go, which would be another ultimate Cowboys move. I'm really like, you teed me up to
Hey,
really
it's fair game,
talk,
Johnny. It's fair. They're fair game. They're fair game.
you tee me up to talk crap on the Cowboys. I'm going to take every opportunity I
Yeah,
get.
yeah. I mean, it's
But either way, Harrisburg's own, Penn State's own Micah Parsons is going to get the bag, and that's even more evident after Myles Garrett just got 122 million over 4 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you and Max talked about it, but Saquon got his just reward as well recently. Was a 2-year extension worth like $40 million or something like that. I mean, probably worth every penny. What he did for that team last year.
Yeah. So that news dropped because me and Max had our live pod last Thursday, and that news dropped on like Friday, so the day after. So we didn't talk about it, but yeah, Saquon getting that deal, rewarding him for the season that he had. Obviously setting the NFL rushing leader mark with playoffs included. Could have broke Eric Dickerson's single season regular season record if he played in that last game against the Giants, leading the Eagles to Super Bowl. To ultimately do a Super Bowl win. I know he didn't play, he didn't have the numbers against the Chiefs, but their focus on him in that game opened up everything else for Jalen Hurts in that offense. And what he's done in 1 year to elevate that team has been incredible. And really happy again for Saquon to see him get rewarded for that highest paid running back in NFL history in terms of a year-by-year basis, now over $20 million a year with that extension. So Penn Staters are out here either getting paid or about to get paid, Bob.
They are, and they earned it. Yeah, whatever you do, Dallas couldn't have gotten in front of the Max Crosby signing and the Garrett signing and maybe saved yourselves, I don't know, countless millions of dollars. But no, we're just going to take our time. We're going to pay through the nose because that's what we do it well. If we're going to do something badly, we're going to do something badly well, and I think that's the Jones family's new philosophy, and I'm not really here for it, but I'm embracing my fate. I don't really have a choice. Johnny, let's move it along here on the Blue and White Breakdown. I continue. I always like talking about your list of the most important players. I think going into spring, it's not necessarily in 2025, but it's really about the off season, spring drills, and a lot of these players. I mean, they're pretty much the most important players. Regardless, but I want to circle back just to your list. We have perused back to front, I think 25 through 16. 16 was Nolan Rucci, another important player, obviously, in the spring and also for the fall. But as we look at the next 5 on your list, let's each pick a player. A couple of them stand out to me. Number 15, a little bit forgotten, but certainly a very, very talented player. Anthony Donko, who was a starter at right tackle, got hurt in the Minnesota game. Nolan Rucci took over and did a fantastic job in relief. Nolan had been the swing tackle, the Wisconsin transfer, the son of Todd Rucci, but he really stepped up. They needed him to step up, and boy, did he do it. Anthony Donko, though, hopefully, if he's healthy, that's a good problem for Penn State to have at offensive tackle with Rucci, Donko, and Drew Shelton. Number 14, a very talented corner, Zion Tracy. 13, a big piece of Penn State's O-line future. He's now in his second year. One of the biggest true freshmen I've ever seen at Penn State, and this is I think my 24th year at Penn State. Easily one of the biggest, probably the biggest. Cooper Cousins, I think Erie kid. Very interesting. Number 12 is Max Granville, young defensive end who they continue to list him, Johnny, at like 229 pounds. I don't think he is anywhere near that anymore. I think he's a lot bigger. And then rounding out the list of this 5 is the Georgia transfer who hit the ground running in Penn State's corner room. A.J. Harris had a very solid year, all Big Ten choice, I think 13 last year, but boy, another step forward, and they're not going to be many corners in the country that are better than AJ. So of that list of 5, as we count down, what's somebody you kind of want to expand upon?
Yeah, let's talk about Max Granville. And it's a guy that our Max Ralph,
Big
has
fan.
written.
He's a big fan.
Yeah, he's a big fan. I think a part of it is the shared name, but also the potential
Yeah.
really that Max Granville has, because
Yeah.
you look at that DN room. We just talked about Abdul Carter leaving.
Yeah.
Amin Vanover, NCAA waiver denied. Smith Vilbert enters the portal. Jamel Lyons no longer with the
Yeah.
team. You've got Denai Dennis Sutton starting on one end, and then you got Zariah Fisher, a 6th-year guy who has showed like real flashes and made strides over his Penn State career, but has been hit by the injury bug more than once and missed last season with a serious injury. He's like the older guy who you would figure to step up in the room and start opposite Denai. But if it's not going to be him, I mean, Max Granville has as good a chance as any to be a starting defensive end, or at the very least, like have it like an Amin Vanover type rotational role on this defensive front off the edge. And you're talking about a kid who, should have been a high school senior last year. Like he reclassified it last August and joined the team, right before the season started, and was playing a role for them down the stretch. And so to have a young player like that make an imprint and impact so soon, and now he has a full off season. We're talking about this list of most important players of the off season as we approach spring camp. For a player like that to have a full off season, winter workouts, spring camp, summer, et cetera, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. And he was super highly touted coming out of Texas and joining Penn State as a recruit. And the talent is certainly there, and the opportunity is certainly there for Max.
Yeah. They have a couple of young defensive ends, and with the departure of Smith Vilbert, in addition to Amin not getting an extra year, I think a couple months ago, I think maybe if one of them popped, they would have been happy. I think they're going to probably need at least two to really step up and be in the rotation. And Denai, I'm pretty sure the spring workload for Denai, I think I would just bubble wrap him. I would let him go to the gym, and I'd let him go to the training table, and maybe do some conditioning drills during practice. Johnny, I'm not risking anything with this guy. He is good to go. He was good to go at the end of last season, and it was good luck to the offensive tackle at the end of the year that tried to go with him one-on-one. It just did not go well. It's going to get even worse in the fall, but they're going to need somebody. So he does not get quadruple teamed. They're going to need somebody on the other end to be fairly formidable, and maybe it will be Max. It really could be Max. I mean, in this day and age, you could see he had the skills in limited action last year. I always look for when you hear James Franklin and some other people talk about players, I'll pay close attention to what they're saying about the defensive ends, because usually they know, right? By the end of spring, they know if they're ready. Not so much at other positions, wideout, not so much, but when they start talking about defensive backs and linebackers and defensive ends late in spring, and you hear the same thing from the coaching staff and the players, expect some big things in August if they can stay healthy. I just wanted to talk briefly about Cooper Cousins. I had mentioned him before. I think he's important for a number of reasons. Sal Wormley is gone. He was the right guard. If you're Penn State, you have to feel really good about the offensive line in general. And in the interior, with Nick Dawkins back and Venga back at left guard, you have to feel great. I'm just a little curious about who is going to be the right guard. The only reason I say that is I know when he's healthy, J.B. Nelson is a player that James Franklin always speaks very highly of, because he brings a little bit of an edge, and he can play multiple positions, and they like that. But, keeping him healthy has not exactly been easy. And I'm just curious, I could see them using three guards, much like they use three tackles. And they're going to say, if you hear them say, we feel like we have three starters at guard, I think that's probably true. And they do need Cooper ready this year. And I think they felt like he was probably ready at the end of last year, but there was nowhere to play him. But I think that he is going to be, I would like to see, because Dawkins is a power player, Venga is a power player. I do want to see a look where it's Venga It's Nick, and then Cooper's at right guard. Again, I just want to see the look in the eyes of maybe some undersized defensive tackles early in the season, because that can't be any fun, Johnny.
No, like what is it, Villanova and Nevada and like those tackles are in for many ice baths after those games, looking ahead to August and September, because those guys on the interior, and I think Cooper Cousins is going to be in there. Like I think Cooper Cousins is going to
Right.
is ultimately going to earn a starting role on the interior of this offensive line. I think his the work that he's already put in, not only to his body but his mind and everything else, like everything you've talked like and heard from Phil Troutwine, the offensive line coach, from fellow teammates, offensive linemen. Drew Aller has talked highly of him over the last year. Like he's done everything to put himself in a position to start as a second-year player on this offensive line, and I would almost be surprised if he doesn't start at right guard now that Wormley's gone. And looking even beyond, and another reason why he's so important to this team, not only in 2025 as they push to contend for and win a national title, but even beyond that, you look at some of the other guys on the offensive line, like Nick Dawkins will be gone. Vengo will probably be off to the NFL. Like there's going to be some turnover on this offensive line looking ahead to 2026. And Cooper Cousins, who was the first player committed in the 2024 recruiting class, who was a leader in that recruiting class, when we talked to him a few weeks ago, he sounds like a veteran already. He sounds like a guy who's been in this program for years and years. And I think that he is like a future captain kind of guy, a future leader of the offensive line kind of guy. And so, if he's able to have obviously a very good winter workouts, spring camp, summer, earn a starting role, play well this upcoming season, you're looking at like the anchor of Penn State's offensive line for the next 2 or 3 years potentially beyond that. So, yeah, super important offseason for him and all the guys that you listed and all the guys who are on that list, which is out in full 25 through 1. And some players, by the way, Bob, and I know I mentioned this in a previous podcast, some players who didn't make the list, by virtue of like Zariah Fisher, I had mentioned before, like didn't know his status. Xavier Gilliam is one that was probably an overlooked guy that I didn't throw on there that maybe should have been. But there's a lot of important players as we look ahead to spring camp, which starts here in a couple to a few weeks. And a lot of names we'll be hearing, we'll be listening for when James Franklin talks and when the position coaches talk as well.
Yeah, Johnny, and I also think that secretly when we talk about Cooper, you mentioned Venga. I think somewhere in the back of Andy Kotelnicki's mind, he's like, I think I got another crackback motion receiver to pair with Venga to really, really mess with defensive players, because Venga was the only one I think that did that last year. And I'm wondering if maybe Cooper's a big boy, but if he can move at all, and I think he can, like that'd be another guy that might be in the new expanded wideout rotation for crackbacking on defensive ends, linebackers, and unsuspecting safeties.
One thing to add there, just so Venga is 6'4", 348 pounds.
Yeah.
Cooper Cousins is 6'6", 316 pounds.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even be surprised if he threw on a couple more pounds in the last time since they updated the website. The roster. So imagine one of those two running at you.
Is there a way they could both split out wide and then motion back into the formation? I don't even know if that's legal, but I'd have my head on a swivel pretty consistently if I was in the front seven or I was a walk-up safety. I don't know that I'd be sleeping well before the Penn State game.
I wouldn't doubt that Andy Kotelnicki will find a way to split both of those big boys out at some point this upcoming season.
Yeah.
And I am anxiously and eagerly awaiting that.
I agree. All right, Johnny, good chatting with you. That's it for this episode of the Blue White Breakdown, the Monday, March 10th edition. I believe Johnny and I will be back for a live broadcast around lunchtime on Thursday. I think Max has some traveling ahead of him, but he'll have fun with that. But I think it'll be Johnny and I. I'm going to try and have some guests on. We're going to do some different stuff in the off season, experiment a little bit with the Blue White Breakdown, have fun with it, but especially in spring and a little bit after spring. But this is a big spring for Penn State. They are they are really they still have some things to determine, Johnny, but they're all in. They're clearly all in 2025 with who they've been able to retain. They have some definite strengths that are going to be problems for every team that's going to play them on their schedule, but they need some players to step up at some key positions, and if that happens, I think this is going to be. They were so close last year to the championship final. If things break their way and some players step up, they're going to be right there again. It's going to be a fun spring, fun off season. Johnny and I will be back Thursday for a live broadcast. Good chatting with you. The weather's getting warmer, Johnny. I'm excited. We're going to see you in a couple days, Penn State fans.